Secrets of the Book of Enoch, The Watchers, Nephilim and God's Judgment, full cinematic script, Part 1. Prologue, The Forgotten Prophet. In the ancient days, long before the flood that covered the earth, long before kingdoms rose and fell, there lived a man who walked a path no one else had ever walked. His name was Enoch. The Bible tells us in Genesis 5:21-24 that Enoch lived 365 years, and unlike all others in Adam's line, he did not die. Enoch walked with God, then he was no more because God took him. He was not merely a man of faith, he was a prophet, a visionary, a scribe of heaven. To him were revealed secrets of creation, mysteries of angels, and visions of the throne of God. His writings, now called the Book of Enoch, were read by ancient believers, echoed in the New Testament, and even referenced by the early church fathers. In Jude 1:14-15 we read, "Behold, the Lord comes with 10,000s of his holy ones to execute judgment on all, and to convict all the ungodly of all their deeds." This is a direct prophecy from Enoch, preserved through the ages. Though many tried to bury his writings, the story of Enoch survived, whispering of events both terrifying and wondrous. A story of angels who fell, giants who ruled the earth, and visions of heaven's judgment. This is the story of Enoch, the story of the Watchers, the story of God's judgment and mercy. Chapter 1. The world before the flood, before Noah ever built an ark. The world was fresh and filled with beauty. Streams flowed freely from Eden, forests stretched wide, and the air was filled with peace. Humanity, still young in its generations, lived in simplicity, tilling the land, raising families, and calling upon the name of the Lord. But the eyes of heaven were always watching. God had appointed angels, known as the Watchers, to observe and guide mankind. They were radiant beings, holy messengers, guardians of creation. For ages they fulfilled their role with faithfulness, standing as intermediaries between heaven and earth. Yet the seeds of rebellion grew quietly. The Watchers began to gaze, not with holy oversight, but with longing. They looked upon the daughters of men and saw beauty in their form. What began as curiosity grew into desire, and desire gave birth to sin. Genesis 6:1-2 tells us, "When human beings began to increase in number on the earth and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw that the daughters of humans were beautiful, and they married any of them they chose." This was a forbidden act, a crossing of boundaries God himself had set. For angels were not meant to mingle with flesh, nor to corrupt the order of creation. But their hearts burned, and their leader whispered words of courage or of deception. Chapter 2. The Descent of the Watchers. The leader of this rebellion was Shemihazar, a mighty angel of authority. He gathered 200 of his brethren, persuading them to join in a pact of defiance. But fear trembled among them. They knew the weight of this sin. They knew heaven's wrath, and so they hesitated.
But Shemihazar spoke, "I fear that you will indeed not agree to this deed, and I alone shall have to pay the penalty of a great sin."
Then another, named Asael, also called Azazel, stepped forward. Together they swore an oath, binding themselves to a shared destiny. The Book of Enoch tells us they descended upon Mount Hermon. There they sealed their oath with curses, each vowing not to turn back until they had fulfilled their lust. 200 angels crossed the veil from spirit into flesh, falling like blazing stars upon the mountains. They took wives for themselves. They lay with the daughters of men. And from this unnatural union were born monstrous children, mighty in size, unholy in nature. These were the Nephilim, the giants of old, the heroes of legend, though their deeds were steeped in terror. Genesis 6:4 declares, "The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God went to the daughters of humans and had children by them. They were the heroes of old, men of renown. But their fame was not for goodness, their fame was for violence, cruelty, and corruption." Chapter 3. Giants on the earth. The earth groaned under the weight of their presence. The Nephilim towered over men, devouring fields of grain in a single meal. Their appetites knew no limit, and when food ran short, they turned on mankind. They consumed human flesh. They drank blood. They slaughtered beasts, twisted creation, and filled the earth with terror. And the Watchers, their fathers, sought to empower them further. They began to teach humanity forbidden knowledge, secrets that were never meant for mortal hands. Azazel taught men to forge weapons of war. Swords, knives, shields, breastplates. Blood was spilled like never before. He revealed the craft of adornment, bracelets, ornaments, cosmetics, and the painting of eyelids. Vanity spread, leading men and women astray. Bakel taught astrology, the reading of the stars. Kokabel taught the constellations. Penemu taught the art of writing, twisting it for deception. Kasdeya revealed the knowledge of abortion and enchantments. The gifts of heaven, when misused, became curses on earth. Knowledge meant for the order of creation became tools of destruction. Violence covered the land, blood cried out from the ground. Creation itself bent under corruption. Not all were silent. From among mankind the righteous lifted their voices, they prayed for deliverance, they begged for justice, and their cries pierced the heavens. The archangels saw the ruin, Michael the defender of God's people, Gabriel the herald of divine messages, Raphael the healer of nations, Uriel the angel of light and knowledge. They gazed upon the earth and trembled. They saw mankind enslaved by lust, sorcery and violence. They saw the giants devouring the innocent. They saw the watchers, once holy, now corrupted, and they took their case before the throne of the Almighty.
Lord of lords, King of kings, God of gods, they cried, the earth has been corrupted. The blood of men cries out, will you not judge?
Then God, the Ancient of Days, whose throne is beyond time and space, answered with fire and thunder.
The earth has been corrupted through the works taught by Azazel. To him ascribe all sin, bind him hand and foot, cast him into the darkness, cover him with jagged stones until the great judgment. In the abyss he shall remain forever. And Shemihazah and all who were with him, bind them as well. Place them in the valleys of the earth until the day of their judgment and of their consummation. On that day they shall be led off into the abyss of fire, into torment and into prison for all generations. And as for their children, the giants, destroy them. Let them turn against one another in violence until none remain.
The decree was sealed. Judgment had come. But before the sentence was carried out, the watchers begged for mercy. Trembling, they turned to the one man who still walked with God, Enoch.
They pleaded with him, write for us a petition that the Lord of heaven may forgive us, that we may not perish.
And so Enoch became the intercessor between fallen angels and the Almighty. Enoch, righteous and humble, took their petition and ascended into heaven. He traveled through realms no mortal had seen. He passed fiery gates, crystal palaces, rivers of light and mountains ablaze, and before the throne of the Most High he bowed. But the Lord would not be moved.
Go, Enoch, said God, and tell the watchers of heaven who sent you to intercede for them. It is not for men that you should intercede, but for you. Never shall you obtain peace or pardon of sin. As you have seen the destruction of your children, so shall you be bound for eternity.
Enoch delivered the message, and the watchers wept. Their rebellion had sealed their fate. Their children, the Nephilim, would perish. Their knowledge would be cursed, and they themselves would be imprisoned until the final day of fire. And thus the stage was set for judgment, but this was only the beginning of Enoch's visions. Secrets of the Book of Enoch. The Watchers, Nephilim, and God's Judgment, full cinematic script, Part 2, Chapter 7, The Flood and the Cleansing of the Earth. The decree of heaven had been spoken. The Nephilim, towering giants born of angels and mortals, filled the earth with bloodshed. The cries of humanity reached the highest throne, and judgment could no longer be delayed. The angels descended with power, stirring the giants to war against one another. Fathers turned on sons. Brothers struck down brothers. The mighty fell by the hands of the mighty, and the land was covered with their corpses. Yet, even in death, their spirits remained restless. The Book of Enoch tells us that the souls of these giants became unclean spirits, what we now call demons. Unlike angels, they were bound to earth, unable to ascend to heaven or descend to Sheol. Their hunger, their rage, and their corruption lingered, tormenting mankind for generations. As the giants perished, God looked upon humanity. Violence covered every field, corruption filled every heart. Genesis 6:5 records, "The Lord saw how great the wickedness of the human race had become on the earth, and that every inclination of the thoughts of the human heart was only evil all the time. And so God chose a man, Noah, a man righteous in his generation, blameless in his ways. To him was given the command, build for yourself an ark of cypress wood, for I will bring floodwaters on the earth to destroy all life under the heavens. Genesis 6:14-17. The ark rose plank by plank while the world mocked, but when the rains fell and the fountains of the deep burst open, laughter turned to terror. The waters swallowed mountains, and every living thing perished save for Noah, his family, and the creatures preserved in the ark. The corruption of the watchers' children was washed away. The giant's reign ended in watery judgment, but the story of Enoch did not end here. For even as the flood cleansed the earth, Enoch himself was taken higher into visions that stretched far beyond. Chapter 8. Enoch's journey through the heavens. Unlike Noah, Enoch's role was not to build but to witness. He was lifted into the heavens, guided by angels, to see the hidden realms of God's creation. His visions were unlike anything humanity had known, a cosmic journey through fire, ice, crystal, and eternal light. The Book of Enoch describes him taken to the first heaven, where he saw the winds that support the earth, the storehouses of snow, and the chambers of rain. He was shown how the elements obeyed God's command, each appointed to its season. He passed into the second heaven, where he saw prisons of darkness, gloomy caverns where rebellious angels awaited judgment. Their cries echoed like thunder, their chains glowed with fire. In the third heaven, Enoch beheld paradise itself, a garden greater than Eden, filled with trees of life, rivers of healing, and the fragrance of immortality. Yet on the other side of that realm he saw a place of terror, a desert of fire where the wicked awaited their fate. Ascending further, he entered the fourth heaven, beholding the course of the sun and moon. He saw angelic guardians guiding their paths, ensuring that light and darkness kept their appointed times. In the fifth heaven he saw armies of angels, silent and mournful, awaiting the trumpet of battle. Their faces were sorrowful, for they had once joined the watchers but turned back before the oath was sealed. In the sixth heaven he beheld radiant beings, the holy ones who record the deeds of men, who write the history of nations, who weigh the actions of every soul. Finally, in the seventh heaven, Enoch stood before the throne of God. The Book of Enoch describes the throne as a structure of crystal, fiery flames issuing forth, rivers of fire flowing beneath. Around it stood countless angels, seraphim with 6 wings, cherubim of fire, and archangels who trembled before the presence of the Ancient of Days. And there upon the throne was the great glory, God himself, brighter than the sun, surrounded by endless choirs crying, "Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of spirits, who fills the earth with his glory." Enoch fell upon his face, trembling, yet a voice lifted him up, saying, "Stand, Enoch, and hear my word. You are to be my scribe, to write the secrets of heaven for generations yet unborn." And so Enoch became the messenger of visions, recording the mysteries of creation, the fate of angels, and the judgment to come. Chapter 9, The Secrets of Creation and the Stars. One of the greatest revelations given to Enoch was the order of the heavens, the movements of the sun, moon, and stars. In what scholars now call the astronomical book, Enoch described the laws of heavenly lights. He saw portals in the east and west where the sun rises and sets, guided by angelic beings. He saw the phases of the moon, its waxing and waning like the beating of a heart. He beheld the stars, each fixed in its appointed course, each under the command of heaven's laws. The angels told him, "All these serve the will of the Lord of spirits. They rise and set according to his word. If one star should transgress its order, great judgment would come upon it." Enoch realized that the heavens themselves were a testimony, a cosmic clock declaring God's faithfulness. The order of creation reflected the order of God's throne. But when angels rebelled, when stars strayed from their paths, chaos followed. The Watcher's fall was not only a betrayal on earth, but a disruption of the harmony of the cosmos. These secrets were given to Enoch so that mankind might understand the balance between order and rebellion, between obedience and judgment. Chapter 10, The Son of Man and the Final Judgment. But among all his visions, one stood above the rest. Enoch saw a figure, radiant, majestic, more glorious than the stars, yet humble in appearance. The angels called him the Son of Man. Enoch 46, 1-3 records. There I saw one who had a head of days, and his head was white like wool. And with him was another being whose countenance had the appearance of a man, and his face was full of graciousness like one of the holy angels. And I asked concerning that Son of Man who he was and whence he was, and why he went with the head of days. And he answered and said to me, This is the Son of Man who has righteousness, with whom dwells righteousness, and who reveals all the treasures of that which is hidden. Enoch saw that this Son of Man would one day sit upon the throne of judgment. The kings of the earth would fall before him. The wicked would be cast into fire, while the righteous would inherit eternal glory. This vision was a prophecy of the Messiah, a foreshadowing of Jesus Christ, the one who would come generations later to fulfill all righteousness. The Lord told Enoch, "This is the chosen one. He will overthrow the kings and the mighty. He will judge the fallen angels. He will establish my kingdom forever." For Enoch, it was a glimpse of eternity. For us, it is a promise still unfolding. Chapter 11, the fate of the Watchers. Even as Enoch recorded these visions, the Watchers trembled in their prison. Bound in the valleys of the earth, they awaited their final doom. Azazel, covered with jagged rocks in a desert place, remained in darkness until the day when he would be cast into the eternal fire. Shemihazar and his 200 rebels were chained, watching helplessly as their children, the Nephilim, perished in the flood. Their petition for mercy had been denied. Their judgment was irreversible. The Book of Enoch says, "You shall have no peace. A severe sentence has gone forth against you to bind you. You shall not obtain forgiveness, nor shall you see mercy, but you shall be bound in bonds until the day of the great judgment." Their fate stands as a warning to all creation. Even the mighty angels cannot escape the justice of God. Enoch, having seen these visions, returned with writings that would echo through eternity. He had witnessed the corruption of angels, the terror of giants, the judgment of God, and the promise of the Messiah. But his journey was not yet finished, for beyond judgment lay hope, beyond destruction lay renewal, and beyond the visions of fire lay the promise of eternal light. The final overthrow of evil, Enoch's transformation into the heavenly scribe, secrets of the Book of Enoch, the Watchers, Nephilim and God's judgment, full cinematic script, Part 3, Chapter 12. The vision of paradise. Enoch was carried still higher, beyond the courses of the stars, until his eyes beheld a garden unlike any on earth. It was the paradise of the righteous, hidden from the beginning of the world, reserved for those who walk with God. He described trees that bore fruit continually, their leaves shimmering with healing light. Rivers of living water flowed through valleys of crystal, and the air was filled with songs. Not of birds alone, but of spirits redeemed, their voices rising in unending praise. In the center of that garden stood the tree of life, towering to the heavens, its fragrance sweeter than any perfume, its fruit glowing like fire, yet cool to the touch. And the angel who guided him said,
"This tree shall be given to the righteous and humble. To them shall life be granted. They shall eat of its fruit and never wither. But it shall not be given to sinners, for they shall be cut off from its presence."
Enoch realized this was the inheritance promised from the beginning, eternal communion with God, the reward of faithfulness. Chapter 13, the Valley of Judgment. But then the angel carried him further, to a place of dread. He saw a valley of fire, rivers of molten flame, and mountains that smoked like furnaces. Lightning tore through the darkness, and winds howled with the cries of the condemned. Enoch trembled as he saw prisons of iron, chains unbreakable, and pits of torment. Within them were the spirits of kings and warriors who had ruled with violence, now brought low. Their thrones had turned to ash, their crowns to dust.
This is the place prepared for the rebellious. Here the watchers shall be cast on the great day. Here the mighty who loved oppression more than justice shall dwell forever. Their spirits shall burn, but they shall not be consumed. Their memory shall rot, but their punishment shall not end.
Enoch's heart shook with fear. He had seen paradise and hell, life and death, the mercy of God and the fire of his wrath. Chapter 14, the Book of Records. As his journey continued, Enoch was shown a chamber filled with scrolls, tablets of stone, and books of fire. Angels stood like scribes, recording every deed of mankind. Nothing was hidden from their eyes.
These are the books of remembrance. Every word spoken, every thought conceived, every act committed is written here. On the day of judgment, all shall be revealed.
Enoch realized that human life was not lived in secret. Even the smallest deed echoed into eternity. The righteous would be remembered for their faith. The wicked would be exposed for their rebellion. You too, Son of Man, shall become a scribe of righteousness. Write all that you see for generations to come. Many will reject it, but in the last days your words will be revealed again and the wise will understand. Chapter 15. The resurrection of the righteous in his visions. Enoch saw the end of days. Thrones were set up, and the Ancient of Days took his seat. The books were opened, and the dead were raised. He saw the righteous shining like the stars, clothed in garments of glory. Their faces were radiant, their voices filled with joy. They were gathered to the tree of life, drinking of its water, eating of its fruit, living in eternal light. But he also saw the wicked, kings, rulers, and the rebellious angels brought forth in chains. They were cast into the abyss of fire, never to rise again. Enoch 51:1-2 says, "In those days shall the earth also give back that which has been entrusted to it, and Sheol also shall give back that which it has received, and hell shall give back that which it owes. And he shall choose the righteous and holy from among them, for the day has drawn nigh that they should be saved." For Enoch, this was the greatest hope, that death itself would be undone, that justice would prevail, and that God's kingdom would endure forever. Chapter 16. The Son of Man enthroned once more. Enoch's eyes were lifted, and he saw the Son of Man seated upon a throne of glory. Around him the nations were gathered, their deeds weighed in a balance. The kings of the earth trembled, and the mighty who once mocked God fell on their faces. The Son of Man judged with wisdom, not partiality. The righteous entered into joy, the wicked were cast into fire. And the watchers, bound since the days of Enoch, were brought forth to face their doom. The Lord of spirits seated him on the throne of his glory. The spirit of righteousness was poured out upon him. The word of his mouth slew all sinners, and all the unrighteous were destroyed from before his face. This vision was a prophecy of the Messiah. Centuries later, Jesus of Nazareth would declare in Matthew 25:31-32, "When the Son of Man comes in his glory, and all the angels with him, he will sit on his glorious throne. All the nations will be gathered before him, and he will separate the people one from another, as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats." What Enoch saw, Christ proclaimed. What was revealed in visions was fulfilled in truth. Chapter 17. The transformation of Enoch. Having seen all these things, Enoch's life was no longer his own. He had been chosen as a vessel of revelation, a prophet to generations he would never meet. Jewish tradition later remembered him as Metatron, the great scribe seated beside the throne of God. But the scriptures keep it simple. He was a man who walked with God, and God took him. Unlike Adam, who fell, unlike Noah, who endured, unlike Abraham, who wandered, Enoch was lifted up, carried into heaven, transformed into an eternal witness. His words, though hidden for ages, would echo into the future, to warn, to encourage, and to reveal. Enoch had seen the fall of angels, the corruption of giants, the cleansing of the flood. He had walked through paradise and hell, read the books of destiny, and beheld the Son of Man enthroned. His journey was nearly complete, but one final vision remained, a glimpse of eternity itself. Chapter 18. The vision of eternity. Enoch was lifted once more beyond the heavens into a place where time itself did not flow. There he saw the new creation, a world purified, radiant with God's glory. He beheld mountains of precious stones, sapphire, ruby, emerald, glowing with colors no human tongue could name. Rivers flowed like molten gold, their waters shining with light, not reflecting it but radiating from within. Above him the sky was not blue nor black, but living fire, breathing, shimmering, endless. And at the center, brighter than all suns combined, was the throne of the Lord of Spirits. Around the throne gathered the multitudes of the righteous, men and women from every generation, clothed in robes of white, their faces shining with joy. They sang in one voice, "Blessed be the Lord of Spirits, who reigns forever. The earth is his footstool, the heavens his dwelling, and his mercy endures to all generations." Enoch was shown the destiny of the faithful, a kingdom without death, without sorrow, where the presence of God filled every heart and every breath. Chapter 19. The final doom of the wicked. But he also saw the fate of those who rejected God's mercy. There was a dark abyss, deeper than mountains, vaster than seas. Rivers of fire poured into it, yet its bottom could not be seen. In that place the watchers, Shemi-Hazar, Azazel, and their companions, were bound with eternal chains. Their eyes burned with terror. Their voices cried in despair, and above them the souls of kings and rulers who had loved violence and pride, who had worshipped idols and mocked God, were cast down like stones. Their power was gone. Their names were forgotten. Their torment had no end.
This is the fate of those who lift themselves against the Most High. This is the reward of rebellion. Their works perish with them, and their memory is turned to dust.
Enoch shuddered. He understood then that God's justice was not cruelty, but necessity. A holy God could not let wickedness endure forever. Evil must be judged. Sin must be destroyed. Only then could creation be renewed. Chapter 20. The Eternal Kingdom. After showing him judgment, the angel turned Enoch's gaze once more toward the righteous. He saw the elect one, the Son of Man, seated on the throne of glory. Streams of living water flowed from his presence. The tree of life blossomed at his side, and all the nations who had loved his name came to worship.
These are the ones who loved righteousness and hated lawlessness. These are the humble, the meek, the faithful. To them I give an eternal inheritance. They shall dwell in my light. They shall never again hunger or thirst. They shall never again mourn or die. For I will be their God, and they will be my children.
Enoch 62:13-14 describes it. And the righteous and elect shall have risen from the earth and ceased to be of downcast countenance. They shall have been clothed with garments of glory, and these shall be the garments of life from the Lord of spirits. And your garments shall not grow old, nor your glory pass away before the Lord of spirits. This was the promise, the kingdom of God, eternal and unshakable, where justice and mercy meet, and where love reigns forever. Chapter 21. Enoch's Farewell. Having seen all these visions, Enoch's mission was complete. He returned to his people, speaking of the watchers, the giants, the flood, the Son of Man, and the judgment to come. He warned the wicked, he encouraged the righteous, he wrote books of prophecy, entrusted to his children and to future generations, and then, in the midst of his days, God fulfilled his promise. Genesis 5:24 records simply, Enoch walked with God, then he was no more because God took him. Unlike others, he did not see death. Unlike Noah, he did not face the flood. Unlike Abraham, he did not wander to a foreign land. Enoch was taken directly into the presence of God, a sign of the reward for faithfulness. His life became a testimony that those who walk with God need not fear the grave, for the Lord is able to bring them into his glory. Epilogue. The legacy of Enoch. Though the Book of Enoch was set aside by many, its echoes remain throughout Scripture. Jude quotes him, Peter alludes to him. Revelation reflects his visions. The themes of angels, judgment, and the coming Messiah are woven into the New Testament itself. His warnings to the watchers remind us that no rebellion escapes God's justice. His visions of paradise remind us of the hope promised to the faithful. His prophecy of the Son of Man points directly to Christ, the fulfillment of all righteousness. Today, the story of Enoch calls us to remember that unseen forces of good and evil still shape our world, that sin, though it rises high, will be judged. That righteousness, though mocked, will be rewarded, that the Son of Man, Jesus Christ, will return in glory to set all things right. The Book of Enoch is not merely an ancient text. It is a mirror of eternity, a reminder that history is not random but guided by the hand of the Almighty. Enoch walked with God, and so can we. This has been the story of the Book of Enoch, the Watchers, the Nephilim, and God's judgment. A tale of angels who fell, of giants who ruled, of a flood that cleansed, and of visions that revealed the throne of God. A tale that reaches from the dawn of time to the end of days, reminding us that though evil may reign for a season, the justice of God is eternal, and above all, it is a tale of hope that the righteous shall shine like the stars, that the Son of Man shall reign forever, and that the kingdom of God is nearer than we think. Enoch walked with God, then he was no more because God took him. Genesis 5:24.